All right, life groups, here we are on lesson 5 on the back half of our spring study. And tonight we're looking at the story where Jesus walks on water and goes to the disciples. And this happens immediately after Jesus feeds the multitude. So I just want to kind of preface that this story also occurs in both Matthew and Mark. And just we get a little bit of insight from comparing those stories. We see that after Jesus feeds the multitude, that he sends the disciples across the sea. They're going to go do ministry elsewhere, but Jesus doesn't go with them. He actually goes up to a desolate mountain and he prays. And I just want us to stop and think about that Jesus he's had a long day. He's been dealing with a lot of people. He's been teaching, he's been feeding, he's been healing, he's been serving, and he's exhausted. But he doesn't just go and take a nap or shut his mind off. He goes and he meets with the Father. And through Scripture, we see a lot of Jesus' prayer habits. Some of his habits include that he prayed often. He prayed often. He prayed with fervency. The writer of Hebrews tells us that Jesus would often pray with loud cries and shouts, that he prayed out loud with emotion. We see that he prayed for others, that he prayed for his disciples. He prayed for us even in John 17. And in Hebrews, again, we see that Jesus, that he's in heaven right now, and the writer tells us that he's there interceding on our behalf, that Jesus prayed for others. Jesus would often pray by himself. He didn't just pray when the disciples were around. He didn't just pray at religious gatherings. He would go by himself to meet with the Father. He prayed for important events. He prayed before important events, and he prayed after important events. Like his whole life was just saturated in prayer. And in this day, it was a great source of comfort and strength for him. And so I want you to consider Jesus' prayer life. Consider your prayer life. And the lesson being, if Jesus, the Son of God, needed prayer, how much more do you and I need prayer? Okay, and so he comes down off the mountain after praying, and the disciples, we come to find out that they're having a rough go of it. They're trying to make their way across the sea, but a violent storm has come upon them, and now they're frightened, and they're struggling to make any headway. And these aren't just, newbies to the sea. These guys are professional fishermen. They're on the water a lot, and yet they're having trouble. And yet we see a very subtle miracle take place here. We know from Scripture that the disciples are now 3 to 4 miles away from Jesus on the shore. And yet Matthew, I believe it's Matthew, says that Jesus, being on the shore, saw them. Now, how is that a miracle, you might ask? I mean, imagine being on the shore at night. There's no light. It's dark. And now there's a storm, there's clouds, there's winds, there's rain in a distance, and yet Jesus sees them. He sees them perfectly. He sees exactly where they're at. And part of tonight's lesson, I just wanted to encourage those of you who might be going through a storm right now, that Jesus sees you and he's praying for you. And he doesn't stop there. He also goes to the disciples, that he begins to make his way across the sea. He meets them where they're at, and he gets them immediately to their destination. And I want you to think, John chapter 14, Jesus tells his disciples that they're about to go through another storm. He's about to be crucified. He's going to be taken away from them, and they're going to be persecuted, hated, and they're going to be in chaos. But he makes this promise to them. He says, hey, don't let your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. He says, I've told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I'm going to prepare a place for you, you can believe that I'm coming back for you, and I'm going to take you to be where I am. He says, you're going to have tribulation, but take heart. I've overcome the world. And that's the good news for us in our day. That yes, we might find ourselves in storms and chaos and different seasons where it's very difficult, but Jesus has made this promise to us. You can believe that he sees you, he's praying for you, and he's coming for you. and one day we're all going to be caught up together, and we're going to immediately reach our destination. That it's going to be sudden, and we will be with him, and things will come to complete peace. Hope this encourages you tonight. Really enjoyed this passage of Scripture, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.